So I will do the Google Voice in a minute and show you what I'm talking about with that. If you're holding like a Google Hangout or a Zoom meeting, and then you will need a Google email for a Google Hangout meeting. You'll need a built-in mic or an external mic. You're probably familiar with that now that you've been to a bunch of meetings. If you want to talk, got to have a microphone somehow. Optional is a built-in camera or an external camera, and also optional is 2 monitors. Probably not feasible for everyone, but it's super helpful so that if you're running a meeting, you can be doing stuff on one screen and hosting the meeting on the other screen. So for the Google Meets, you want to be using your Google account and be logged in. There's the 3x3 square. Usually those dots mean you can access stuff. And with those dots, you just find the Meets icon and click it, and you can start your own meeting. And it just has a join or start a meeting. It's pretty straightforward. You click the plus sign, you can give it a name, and it will give you a link or a code for students to call in if they don't have access to a computer. They wouldn't be able to see anything, but they could still talk with you. So that is an option, not for texting, but for talking to students. They could call in and you could talk through a Google Hangout. And you can turn off, there's the settings of turning off your sound or turning off your video. There's more meeting options with the 3 dots. And you can change, like, if you have multiple cameras set up, if you decide to use a document camera, you can change between the camera looking at you from the computer to the document camera with those 3 dots in the bottom corner. Always try and check your sound. And if you know how to check your microphone levels, I'm going to try and show you that as well, but I can't in the presentation right now, to make sure, because every once in a while, the microphone just gets put on 0 and no one can hear you. So it's a good idea to check that. You can left click your sound icon to check your sound for what you can hear, and right click to open the sound settings to check your microphone levels. If you're hosting a Zoom meeting, you have to create your Zoom account and log in. Originally, you might be doing that through the web page. Eventually, it usually asks you to download their app. And so the app, the buttons look like this, where you can create a new meeting, you can schedule meetings, you can share your screen. Usually, I use the orange button the most to create a new meeting. And you can change your settings so that's the same code every time when you hit that new meeting button. And there's lots of ways to change your Zoom settings, very many. We're going to try and see a few of those as well. To get students to join, you can give them a URL, or you can give them just the meeting code to type in. Like this meeting code was just those 10 numbers, 237922. You type in the meeting codes, and then they can join the meeting. And you can have them password protected like we did with the original meeting. And they can join via their browser and a computer mic. They could do their browser and just a phone call. They could do the Zoom app on a computer, just like I was talking about, where you actually download something, or the Zoom app on your phone. And you can also schedule meetings. If you're setting up lots of meetings, it can help you if you're scheduling them, and even have different links for students to use so that you don't have 2 people joining the same meeting when they're supposed to be at a different time. And there's, again, multiple ways. You can use your web browser. I meant to say the app on the second one. Sorry about the title on that. So you go to your Zoom web browser and log into that, and there's lots and lots of options and settings you can change. On the left side is the main kind of menu where you'll click on meetings, and then there's a blue schedule a new meeting button. And then there's a lot of settings you can choose when you schedule these meetings. When you go to the app, It's just that we saw originally the orange icon of starting a new meeting or a blue icon of scheduling, and then it'll have all the same settings to select. And then here's what the bars will look like. So notice this bar does not have that polling option, this main bar. I think that's a paid feature. The basic, if you're using their free account, won't necessarily have that polling option. But you can get the URL with the invite button. You can be muting or unmuting yourself or changing what microphone with that little area or what video you want showing with that little arrow. Manage participants is where you can see who's in the room. And then share screen is what I'm currently doing. That's how you're seeing what's on my computer. The chat is just to see, you know, and type in if you want to communicate by typing during the meeting. And then once you share your screen, the bar changes to a floating bar. And there's actually more options that I couldn't get to screenshot. Every time I click off, the extra options disappeared. But it has some of those same things where you can do manage participants or chat and all that. And you can also use annotation tools. Those are usually a great feature when you're going to need to write stuff down. Like if you want to basically present a lesson, you can actually draw on whatever you have. Okay, so let me go back to my Zoom. Sorry, so many buttons. Where did it go? There's my floating bar. So I'm going to open my chat now. Any good or any questions so far on what I showed from just the basic overview of how to run a meeting? You could either unmute yourself to talk or type it into the chat.
Hey, April, this is Greg. I wonder if it might be helpful if folks could just post in the chat. I think we only have about 10 or 12 people on this.
Okay.
What tool do you plan? What tool do you plan to use? I didn't create a poll, but you know, just maybe post in the chat what tool they plan to use, and then we can try to see where
we should go from there. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you guys plan to use Google Meet more or Zoom more? What's your tool that you think you're going to be using? That's a great idea, Greg. Okay, so a couple of Zooms so far. Zoom and Google Classroom. Both. Okay, so it seems mostly Zoom. So for some of those Zoom settings, if you want to be able to just log into Zoom, and you should be looking now at just a web page right now. I just Googled Zoom. Then you can just go to the main Zoom page, and you can join meetings. Students can join meetings from this Zoom page, or you can go to your account. If you haven't created an account, you'll need to create your account first. You can sign up for free. So this is my Zoom page with a lot of settings. You'll notice they have removed the time limit. There used to be a 40-minute time limit for big groups, but now for educators, they've removed that because of all that's going on. So you can, you know, change your basic meeting stuff, but you can also go to this Meetings tab. And this is where you can do that schedule a new meeting if you want to be scheduling any set meetings for your students. And that way you have a link ready to send out to them to say, Tuesday at 5, we're going to have this meeting. So you can do it directly in here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just because it's probably really tiny. So it depends on how you invite them. We got a question of, do students need to go to the Zoom page if they're being invited to a Zoom meeting? That depends. If you send the link, it will automatically kind of take them to where they need to go. If you send them the meeting code, they can come to this Zoom page and join a meeting. If they're tech savvy, they may have already downloaded the Zoom app, so they could go there. Greg just sent a link of a place they can go to join in. But if they are using a cell phone, they might just go to their cell phone and log in using that code. So there's lots of ways they can join. Most likely it will be going to either this Zoom page on their computer and joining, or the link Greg sent, or it will be on their phone. A lot of students prefer to join from their phone because they're more familiar and comfortable with it. So if you're scheduling your meeting and you want this same code, you can select recurring meeting. Sorry, I saw another question. I'm going to finish the discussion of this really quick, and then I'll answer your question on, do they need to download anything? This meeting ID, you can either use the same code, that's your personal meeting code, or the generate automatically, that's where you generate a new code over and over again, and it changes. And you can either require a password or not, and decide, you know, I usually keep my video off. I don't know how you want to interact with your students, because sometimes there's background things you don't necessarily want to see with them. So you could start with their video off. Usually you allow both telephone or computer audio. And then you just have different options. Enable join before host. Like, I clicked into this meeting before Greg had, so I wasn't able to join until he started it. So you can enable it so they could come in while you're waiting for the main host to come in. Mute participants on entry, that's usually a good idea because lots of people talking over each other can be difficult. I've never used the waiting room. I assume that might be if you don't enable join before host, but I'm not really sure about that. And I don't think you would want the authenticated users. And you could record automatically if you think you'll forget to hit the record button as you're going. So they don't need to download Zoom in any way to join the meeting if I've invited them to, or do they need to download anything? I'm pretty sure you can join just from a web page without downloading anything. Greg, is that the case?
Yeah, I was just researching that as well. I'm pretty sure that is the case, although most browsers and most devices will automatically prompt somebody to download the app. You know, if they're on an iPad, it's gonna prompt them to download a Zoom app, and you know, same thing with any type of a browser. So I would encourage, if at all possible, you can reach out to the parent and make sure that the parent knows and understands how to get the basic setup done first. That'll help things go smoother. And as I think we've talked about in the past too, you know, the first assignment when doing all this may be just join a Zoom. That's all a student has to do for that period of time is just join a Zoom, so that the parents get used to getting the child hooked up and gets used to joining. And
a lot of these third graders might be using devices like an iPad or a cell phone to join, in which case they do have to download the app. I know a lot of them are more comfortable with those kind of devices because it's what they use more often. Okay. Any other questions so far? Okay. You also have in this main area to look at your recordings. You can select whether you want them saved to like Zoom Cloud, or you can just look at what local recordings you have, but it will tell you where it's located. You can't actually access it from here. It just tells you where it's recorded and what device it was recorded on. So the problem with showing some of the Zoom controls is I don't think you can see my control bar as I'm actually going through and clicking on the controls. I might get a little bit tricky here and pull out my document camera so that maybe I can show you some of those meeting controls. We'll see how this works on my screen. Okay. I'm gonna try. Is it still sharing my screen or is it sharing the new?
No, you're sharing your screen.
Okay, let me try to stop sharing my screen.
Showing the recordings. Yeah.
Okay.
I can take a screen snapshot and probably post it.
Probably.
What you're trying to do. Yeah.
Well, I have a document camera that maybe it's not recognizing because I didn't. Oh wait, nope, start video. There we go.
Okay. There you go.
So let me maybe move this further away.
It's showing sideways, so you may want to rotate your screen.
Okay.
Your dock camera.
I thought there was a way to do that on, sometimes part of a meeting, sorry I hit the wrong button, is just, you know, messing around and figuring things out. So to do this, next to the stop video is that area, or the start video, or is that arrow. And to rotate my screen, I'm having to go to those settings. Rotate 90. How about now? Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. So this is if you're not sharing your screen. So you can see these actual buttons. You can choose to share your screen, and you can actually choose if you only want one participant or multiple participants. There's advanced sharing options. This is where you get all your kind of main features. If you want to start your recording, that's usually where the recording button is, but we're already recording. I think I'm not far enough down, sorry. That should be a little better. So if you want to share your screen, I wonder if it will show both.
Can you adjust your focus a little bit on your dock camera?
Did that help?
Not really.
How about now? Or is it still just too far off?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully you guys get the idea of those controls. Sorry it's not the best, but you know, we're all trying to get this to figure out. And you can share multiple options. You could even just share a whiteboard or an original screen. Like I said, I have two screens because I don't like to have only one. It helps when you're doing these. So I'm not sure I'll be able to show you the annotation options then, because I'm not sure, can you still see my video at this point, or is it only the screen share?
It's back to the recordings.
Back to the recordings, okay. So I can't really show you the annotation options. You'll kind of have to play around with those because there's just a lot of great features if you want to write on stuff while you're doing Zoom. So I think I've covered any other Zoom questions, and then we also had that Google Voice question. So I wanted to try and address that. Okay, I don't think we have any other Zoom questions. I'm trying to bring up my Firefox really quick because that has my fake account. And that is not working for whatever reason. So we're going to bring up an incognito Google tab. And we're going to go to Google Voice. So I need to sign in. So to get to your Google Voice, you need a Google account. I'm trying to remember, I think I did webinar.ga@gmail.com. I think I had it just saved the password on Firefox. I'm going to stop sharing for just 1 second because I really need that Firefox and it's doing something weird because of the share. And come on, Firefox.
Maybe while April's doing that, let me ask another question to the chat. Do folks in the school districts that you're in, are you already using Google Classroom, any types of other Google tools, Google Docs, Google Drive? You can just post your answer in the chat. Very good. Looks like most folks, Google Classroom, Docs, Slide, etc., not chat. Mm-hmm. That's great. Good to know.
Okay, so I am still having Firefox issues. I don't know why it's being kind of a dork, but I think I can instead, if I can get back to my meeting controls.
Hey, April,
Mm-hmm.
if you're just wanting to demo what Google Voice looks like, I did make that video tutorial, so you could share the video and skip through to the like the texting platform page, if that makes sense.
Okay. And where did you share that video?
I put it in the chat.
Oh,
just linked it in.
Sweet. Okay. Because yeah, I just want to preserve student privacy. I bet you guys can't hear the sound, can you?
Nope. But you can just talk through, with the interface up, those features.
So this is what Google Voice will look like. You will have to still create an account and it will give you a number. Let me make this full screen. So you'll see your actual number that you could give out to students. It works like a regular telephone number. Oh, okay. I don't know why it said I paused the share. I think I hit the wrong button. So you should be able to see now what Google Voice kind of looks like. It has this, you'll just go to a web page, and this is what the web page will kind of look like. It will have a number, it will have the telephone numbers in the bottom, and then eventually you'll have a whole list of names on the left. I'm going to see if there's any more messages sent. Nope, it looks like the video just goes on to some other features of Google Voice. But you can click on the student and actually just type in your text messages. You can type in a new number in the to spot, and then at the bottom, it's kind of hard to see, but that's where you'll have your typing area. And you just type your text messages to them, and it just works like a regular phone, but through your web browser. Does that cover, any other questions about how this Google Voice would work? I gotta go out of full screen so I can get back to the chat. Because it's pretty straightforward once you sign up. It's just a texting, or you literally can call. You can make phone calls using the keypad and call students through your computer. It doesn't I've never tried to send group texts via Google Voice specifically for that. I don't think it hides the students' numbers, so you can't send group messages.
That's correct. I can vouch for that, April. I used to send group text, but only for like the student and the parent, because it will not, it's doesn't hide them. It's not like a BCC option, and it doesn't give like the option to leave. So if you start a group chat with 10 people, and you know how some people just hate group threads, they don't have the option to like opt out of that. So individual text or only numbers associated with that student should be sent in a group message.
Yeah, if you want the privacy feature, you really have to go through Remind 101. That's the only group one. I'm sure there's probably more, but that's the one I know of, where they have to opt in, and when you send those group messages and they reply, it only comes back to you, and it looks like you sent them an individual message. Any other Google Voice questions? Or just tools in general? Any meeting tool questions? And just, I can't show you the actual controls of the annotation tools. You'll have to play around with that. But you can literally write on any screen. You know, if you wanted to highlight that, you know, this is where you click on students you've already texted. Is there a messaging place within Classroom? I believe there is. I'm pretty sure there is. I haven't used it super often. Unlike a text message, they won't necessarily get an immediate notification, but every time they log into Classroom, they should get notified they have a message. Is anyone else familiar with Google Classroom that knows for sure that you can send a message? I'm pretty sure you can.
There is a way to post notices, and then as well, since you're logging into Google Classroom, the student would be logging into Google Classroom with presumably a school account. So they would also get that email. They'd get that via email.
And the nice thing, if you choose to use like Remind 101, students can sign up with a text number or an email. If some have text and some have email, Remind 101 is a great tool to reach out to all your students at once in whatever manner is better for them. Any other questions? Anything else you think I missed, Rachel or Greg, that you feel like I should cover a little bit more?
I just reiterating, and you know, to the extent you can, pick a couple of tools and you know, practice with it as much as you can, but try not to introduce too many things too quickly, and really having very basic assignments to get started. The kids will pick up the technology really quickly, and just you know, allowing yourself an opportunity to participate, to you know, show your screen, to be able to have students respond to really simple things. It'll build, and the capability, your confidence with it should build quite quickly. But just start slow, and only work with a few tools. And I think most of you are Google Classroom users, or at least you have it available. There's tons of tutorials out there for Classroom. There's also tons of tutorials for Zoom. I think if you stuck with those two, and had an effective way to be able to communicate with parents, as many parents as you can communicate with, you'll have a great basis for getting started.
And it looks like we had another Remind 101 question. And I'm not sure I understand your question. How do you use Remind 101 from a distance, or? could you maybe clarify just a little bit? How set up from a distance? That does require, I see what you're saying now. That does require an initial form of contact, either sending out an email. If you are using Google Classroom, you could send them a message in Google Classroom of, hey, if you want immediate text messages or emails, here's a link to join my Remind 101 class. So you wouldn't be able to walk them through the steps other than maybe having a tutorial of how to sign up for Remind 101. But then the student would have to do that on their own with whatever initial point of contact you can connect to them with. Does that make sense? Yep. Yeah, that is the disadvantage. You know, you can't walk them through and get them all set up at once so that, you know, everyone knew how to do it. So that might be a good time to set up an individual Zoom session or Google Hangout session, and at that point, walk them through via a meeting how I sign up for this Remind 101 so that students can all be in that same class and get those group messages. I think unless we have any other questions, like Greg said, you know, you just got to kind of try, you know, sometimes stuff I tried today failed. That just happens. I had stuff fail with a student I was tutoring today, and I've been using these tools for a while. Sometimes you just don't know why it doesn't work, and you look for another way to make it work, and you just try your best, and sometimes you give up for a day and say, hey, let's try this again tomorrow. I don't know what's going on. It just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of flexibility of trying to find the tools that work for you and becoming comfortable with them.
On the note of comfort, this is Rachel. I just had one thing to interject, and it's echoing Greg's sentiments about, you know, keep it simple and keep it within what you're comfortable with. You don't feel like because you have the option of using 12 tools, you have to use all 12 of them. Pick the ones that are going to suit your purpose. But what I strongly recommend is having some personal practice sessions, you know, recruit people that you live with or are friends with. And you know what, hey, it's Friday night. Nobody got anything wild to do in quarantine time. Join my Zoom session and you can have, you know, game night with your friends or something, but it'll give you the opportunity as a host to play around with the settings so that you're not doing it live with your kids there and then feeling that extra pressure of not only do you have to deliver your content, but now you have to learn to navigate this new landscape.